Small one.
I'll let it fall.
Oh my God.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Different type of content today. I'm actually gonna vlog a poker session. In case you don't know this about me, I'm a big poker fanatic. And tonight we are playing a private home game at one of my friends' houses. And there should be a lot of money on the table. It should be lots of fun. So my plan is to record some of the hands, make a little vlog out of it, and it should be a fun video. I show up at my friend's place. We're playing 5, 10, no limit Texas Hold'em with a mandatory $25 straddle on the button. A lot of friends here. It's gonna be a great night. I go ahead and sit down in seat 1 and we get started. Okay, first time we're gonna take a look at, I look down at Ace of Hearts, King of Clubs. I am under the gun +1. We are doing a $25 mandatory button straddle. It folds to me. I go ahead and make it $150. The hijack calls and the small blind calls. We are now 3 players to the flop, and the pot is 465 bucks. The flop comes out, it's the 10 of clubs, 3 of diamonds, ace of diamonds. I'm liking this flop a lot with my ace king. I flop top pair, top kicker. The small blind checks to me. I go ahead and bet out $225. The hijack immediately folds, and the small blind calls. The pot's now 915. We go ahead and go to the turn, which is the 9 of spades. The small blind checks. I go ahead and bet $325, and almost immediately the small blind calls. I'm starting to get concerned with what he's calling all of these large bets with. The pot is now $1,565, and we go to the river, which is the 8 of clubs. I'm still feeling really confident about my top pair, top kicker. The small blind checks, but I'm concerned at this point what hand he's calling so many streets with. I go ahead and check back and turn over my hand, and ace king is good for this $1,565 pot. Only a few short minutes later, I pick up pocket kings, king of diamonds, king of spades. Once again, there's a $25 button straddle. I'm the first to act in the small blind, and I make it $75 to go. Under the gun +1 calls, the cutoff calls, and we are 3 players to the flop, and the pot is 250 bucks. The flop comes out, ace of hearts, queen of spades, 6 of clubs. Always an ace on the flop whenever you have pocket kings. I go ahead and check, and so do the other 2 players. The pot is $250. The turn is the 3 of hearts. Under the gun +1 goes ahead and bets out $150. The cutoff thinks about it for a while and then folds. I go ahead and make the call. I'm not too concerned at this point in time. I feel like if someone had a middle to strong ace, they would have gone ahead and let out on the flop. So I'm not super worried. The pot is $550, and we go ahead and see a river card, which is the 5 of clubs. I check, and under the gun +1 checks it back. I go ahead and take down this hand. Not too sure what he had, but I suspect some type of queen, or maybe he possibly even had a hand like king, queen of hearts, turning a flush draw as well. Who knows? I go ahead and take down this $550 pot. Just a little while later, I look down at 6 of diamonds and 5 of hearts. I really want to prove to the vlog that I play hands other than ace, king, and pocket kings. I'm in the hijack. The $25 button straddle is on. The small blind folds, the big blind calls, under the gun calls, I call, and the button checks his option. So we're now 4 players to the flop in a limped pot. The pot is $105. The flop comes out, 7 of spades, 5 of diamonds, 4 of diamonds. I flop middle pair with an open ender, not the worst flop when you decide to get in there with 6-5 offsuit. The big blind checks, under the gun checks. I bet out $60. The button folds, big blind calls, under the gun folds, and now we are heads up to the turn, and the pot is $225. The turn brings the jack of hearts, the big blind checks, and I check back. The river now is the 3 of diamonds. I make my straight, however, diamonds get there, so I want to be a little cautious in this spot. The big blind leads out for $200, sending off some alarm bells. I think about it for just a little while. I'm not sure if that bet is big enough to get me to fold my straight. After a little bit of thinking, I go ahead and make the call. Turns out the big blind had pocket threes, and he made his set of threes on the river, while I made my straight on the river. I go ahead and take down this $625 pot. This next hand is absolutely the hand of the night. We look down at ace of clubs, ace of diamonds. Of course, there's a $25 button straddle. Both of the blinds fold, 2 players call. It gets around to me in the cutoff, and I open to $80. The button folds, I get 2 callers, so now it's 3 ways to the flop. The pot is $280. The flop is a good one. It comes the king of spades, 7 of hearts, ace of spades. I flop top set in a hand with 2 of the most aggressive players at the table. This is a really, really dream spot to be in. Under the gun checks, under the gun +1 checks. I go ahead and check to trap. I want to really disguise the strength of my hand right now. The turn comes out, and it's the king of hearts. My hand keeps on getting better and better. I turn aces full of kings. Under the gun checks, under the gun +1 checks. I go ahead and bet $85. I really, really need to start getting money in this pot. Under the gun folds, and then under the gun +1 decides to tap the brakes, pause, and talk for just a little bit. I've seen him do this when he has extremely strong hands. I've also seen him do this when he's legitimately thinking about folding. So at this point, I'm just listening and trying to figure out where exactly he's at.
Man, Blake, he's filming. That means you got a team. 5 aces.
I'm gonna hit stop record. After thinking out loud for a little bit, he goes ahead and puts in the $85 call. The pot's $450. The river comes the deuce of diamonds, which is obviously insignificant. At this point, my opponent does something that was completely unexpected. He immediately leads out for $1,000 by tossing in a yellow $1,000 plaque. So, of course, I'm thinking to myself, sweet, I'm going to be at least $1,000 richer at the end of this hand. I'm starting to figure out, does he really have a strong hand, or is he going to start to bluff at this pot? Either way, I'm super happy with how this is going. He jokes and says, you can stop recording now, as if I'm going to fold my hand. He had been joking around all night that he noticed whenever I had a losing hand or whenever I was about to fold, I went ahead and stopped recording, which I will admit is a pretty big tell. However, it was funny that I had basically the nuts this time, and so he's joking around.
Might want to turn off the recording. He's getting the board before you.
So at this point, I decide to count my chips and take a quick inventory, figuring out if an all-in would be too much at this point in time. However, it's just about right. I have about $3,175 left in my stack. After a few seconds, I go ahead and say all in and put my remaining chips in the middle. I'm all in.
I'll let in a call.
Quick call.
Oh, king.
Oh my
Fold
God.
over fold.
Fold over fold.
My opponent snap calls and puts his chips in, making the pot $6,800 and turns over king 7, which is a full house, kings over 7s. I immediately turn over my aces, showing aces full of kings. This was an incredibly sick hand. We both had drilled a full house on the turn, and it was pretty much inevitable that all the money was going in the middle. The whole table was pretty surprised and pretty dumbfounded at what just happened. We go ahead and scoop this $6,800 pot with aces full, beating kings full.
Good hand, Blake.
Thank you.
Did you catch that one on video? Can I have a copy of it?
Sick
I'm starting to just feel bad every day.
This next hand is another massive pot. I look down at ace 7 of hearts. I'm in the small blind. I go ahead and call the button straddle for $25. The big blind folds. Under the gun raises right away to $100. The cutoff calls, and I go ahead and put in the call as well with my suited ace. The pot is $335. The flop comes out, and it's a monster. 7 of diamonds, jack of hearts, 6 of hearts. I flop middle pair with the nut flush draw. I go ahead and check, and under the gun bets out $250. The cutoff raises now all in for $835. I go ahead and think about this for a minute. I'd love to see a turn. I could definitely see the argument for going all in right here and trying to get heads up with the player who's all in. If I just call, however, I do run the risk of the player on my left going all in over the top of me and putting me in a really tough spot. After thinking it over, I count out calling chips and put it in the middle. At this point, the pot is $2,255. Literally about 1.8 seconds after my chips get into the middle, just as I feared, the initial bettor rips it all in for $2,740 more. The pot is now $4,995, and if I were to call this, the pot would be $7,735. This is a super annoying spot that I put myself in. I start to count out my chips and see how much I'd be left with if I went ahead and made the call and missed my flush draw, which would take me from being up nearly $4,000 at the start of this hand to being left with less chips than what I started the session with. I finally decide that I'd rather remain up $3,000 instead of running the risk of getting stuck in this game, and I fold my hand. And to be honest, I thought about calling for the vlog, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. After torching that $1,000 with a few speculative calls, I'm out of the hand, and the remaining players decide to run the turn and river 3 times, and guess what happens?
Hard hit, huh?
Just
immediately.
Damn.
That's
Oh
good.
my god.
Again. Oh, wow.
I would have won 2 out of 3, huh?
Yeah, you would have.
So, pretty sick outcome in this hand. As it turns out, the guy who initially raised all in for $830 had Jack 9 offsuit. He had flopped top pair. I called, and then the guy who raised all in behind me had Ace Jack, so he flopped top pair, top kicker. I was actually doing pretty well with middle pair and nut flush draw in this hand against 2 players, but I'm pretty glad I made the fold. And then one of the other players asked immediately after if I had a flush draw, which I thought was pretty funny.
Blake, did you have a flush draw?
So at the end of the day, I would have won 2 out of those 3 runouts, but I think I can live with my decision. I didn't want to risk the profitability of the entire night on a single flush draw. For this last hand, I looked down at 10-8 offsuit. As always, there's a $25 straddle on the button. 2 players call, it gets to me, I go ahead and put in the call, and immediately after, the cutoff raises to $150. Everyone folds, it gets back to me, and I go ahead and make a loose call, hoping to get lucky. The flop comes out, and it's definitely a good one for my hand. It's the 8 of clubs, king of clubs, 10 of hearts. We flop a really disguised 2 pair, and we go ahead and check. At this point in time, the initial bettor goes ahead and leads out for $300. We think about it for all of 2 seconds and go ahead and put in the call. The turn comes out, which is the 4 of diamonds. At this point, I could definitely see myself leading out and starting to build a bigger pot even faster. However, I go ahead and check. And unfortunately, my opponent checks right behind me, so we are going to the river. The river brings the 6 of spades. I still feel like I have way the best hand. I take just a couple seconds to think about how large I want to go with this bet right here. I feel like I'm going to get called most of the time by a middling type of king. I go ahead and cut out $550 and put it in the middle. My opponent thinks about it for just a couple seconds and goes ahead and throws in a chip to make the call. I turn over my 2 pair, and it's good. I'm not too certain what my opponent had, but given the pre-flop raise, I can definitely put my opponent on a hand as strong as ace-king. Either way, this was a really good pot close to the end of the night. All right, so back at my place the next day. Super fun game. Super crazy game. Like I said at the beginning, it was a $3,000 minimum buy-in. You know, it was funny because I knew I was gonna do a poker vlog like this and I haven't done this before. So literally the first half hour, I was just playing every hand, basically gambling and giving money away because I was trying to record some cool hands. So the first 45 minutes, I was already down $600-700, right? Then I won a decent sized pot, another decent sized pot, and then probably an hour and a half in is when that huge hand happened with the aces full. And so that was insane. And then probably about an hour to 2 hours after that is when I had 2 big losses. I ended up calling someone's $800 bet and then got jammed on by the guy on my left. and he jammed for like 3,000 and I had to fold, right? So basically gave $1,000 away in that hand. And then like 2 hands later, I end up calling a river all in for like $2,000 with 2 pair and got beat by top 2 pair. It was a crazy night. It was way up and then a little bit down. I was in for 3,000, cashed out around 5,300 or something like that. So I think I made a $2,200 profit. But man, it should have been like a $4,000 profit, but still, it was a really good night, really fun game. Y'all comment, let me know if y'all like content like this. Also subscribe. The normal stuff that goes on my channel is all about online business and marketing and stuff like that. But if y'all like vlog stuff like this, just let me know. Peace.